Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on Clare with me, Seamus Brady, joined by Luke Peyton once again. We are doing a weekend preview here today. So we have some big games coming up this weekend. We have, of course, round 2 of the Provincial Hurling Championships, and we also have the Ulster Football semi-finals and the Leinster Football semi-finals taking place as well. Luke, it's crazy to think that going into this weekend, we have a situation with the first game that we're going to cover in Cork and Clare, where two big guns are facing almost a do or die scenario, and we're not even finished April. But crazy weekend incoming.
Yeah, definitely. And I think more so with the way head-to-head work. I think if Cork lose this weekend, I think you can nearly say they're gone. Like, I think with the way that's going to be is that they'll already have losses to Clare and losses to Waterford. Like, there's a very good chance. Like, very very good chance if they lose, they're out. Clare then as well. At the other hand as well, they'll have a few more games as well to go. That's the thing. But like they've been huge problems as well, and these are two big guns that could potentially be out already. So yeah, no, look, I think that game's probably standing out already as probably the game of the weekend. I'd say that there's some other appealing games over the weekend, but I think just because the high stakes that game's really standing out, and it's two teams with an awful lot to prove. And yeah, look, they couldn't have got off to probably as disappointing a start as what they had in week one. That like a chance to come back at it.
Yeah, no, certainly. And that's the game that we're going to jump into with to start. So we're going to go hurling first, and then we're going to make our way onto the football. So this game is the one that everybody's going to watch, particularly from a hurling perspective over the weekend, because it feels the most consequential. Cork losing to Waterford, Clare losing to Limerick. As you were mentioning, the head-to-head records and everything like that, it really feels like whoever loses this is more or less gone. And it's crazy to think that after 2 games, that's the situation that both of them face. But that's how ruthless the Munster Championship is, man, and that's why we all love it. Cork and Clare going into this game, I think what's really interesting is which team is coming in the better mindset, which team is coming in the better headspace, because Cork lost to Waterford, Clare lost to Limerick. I think Clare is the main one that they would look at that and think, how on earth did we lose that game? They undid 60 minutes good work in 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think so, and like I think Cork were probably the bigger disappointment over the in round one. I think Cork just fell flat on their face, and the the thing with that is the question is, does that come down to like performance levels? Does it come down to management? Does it come down to team selection? I think it'll be really interesting. I think like because I don't know, I think
What
we're
do you
gonna
think
see.
it was? Why do you think they were so flat against Waterford?
Look, I've always had like this real interest in Cork in the last couple of years with the players that are coming through and the youth and everything as well. I think it's team selection. I think you just can't get away with. You saw like with Waterford and the hunger that Waterford came with. I just feel like everybody's harping on about Horgan, Lahan, and Harnedy. A lot of people are saying like you can't be starting all three. I don't think you can be starting any of them anymore. Maybe Harnedy is the only one at the moment that you can still be starting, and just with all the promise that they've had in the last couple of years as well. It was the younger players that was dragging them through in that game. It was Alan Connolly that stepped up the last day. It was Shane Barrett that stepped up as well. They just had to. I think they missed a trick this league as well to blood young players, to get them in, to get as much game time in with them as possible. And we're in a situation now where they're probably going to end up ripping up the team a little bit, that they'll be putting the likes of Owen Downey back in there as well. I'm not sure what's the crack with Tim O'Mahony, why he wasn't playing like even at all. But like I think we're gonna see that. I think we might see Brian Hayes start as well. So like they're gonna have to make changes in there as well. That they got outworked. They like their forwards didn't put enough pressure on the ball as well. And I just don't think the right personnel was picked. I think you look at it as well, like Darragh Fitzgibbon's a forward that's being played in midfield out of necessity nearly. Mark Coleman started wing back. He got absolutely destroyed on puckouts. Then Tommy O'Connell got destroyed on puckouts as well too. In the second half when he swapped, it's not, the balance just doesn't look fully right. And like we have seen this from Cork, is the only thing I'll say, is that where they've gone out, like traditionally in years where they've gone out and they've been beaten in round one and then they come back the next year, the next day out, and they come out with a huge performance as well. Like, I think I remember a couple of years ago, there was famously when they put Mark Ellis in centre half back and they came back out and then they beat Limerick as well. So like Cork are well capable of doing this, that they tear up the script and then they come out after a really flat first performance, they turn on the style. But I think they need to go back to what they're good at. They need to get the runners going and they need to test the Clare defence. Because look, the Clare defence shipped a good few goals, but Cork need to go back to what they're doing, what they're good at, use their pace, and just get a bit more work in the forwards and pick the younger, hungrier team.
Well, that's it. I remember even 2 years ago, I remember Cork were being written off by everybody. And I remember Waterford were being talked up as that team that were going to go and challenge Limerick for the All-Ireland. I remember Cork's performance when they beat Waterford. I remember Seamus Hannity was immense that day. But I do agree with you that if you're talking Hannity, Lehan and Horgan, I think there's a sense of, you have to look at that, that principle. If you do what you always do, you get what you always got. Like, they've had a younger Horgan, a younger Hannity, and it's not been good enough to even get them out of Munster. So my thing is that I would agree with you that if they fail to get out of Munster this year, I think they seriously need to consider passing the baton on, because it's going to have to happen anyway. And the more game time that they can get into the likes of Alan Connolly, Shane Barrett, like Jack O'Connor, like these Ben Cunningham, like these really talented stars that they have breaking onto the scene for the last couple of years, it's right there. I think the team is there for Cork. They've had the success at underage level that, the pedigree is there. They just need a manager who's brave enough to not go with what is the tried and tested to get them up to a certain point, but then they always fall. I think, yeah, like in this game, it's dangerous as well, because Clare coming into it are going to be really, really vexed at the Limerick game, because I couldn't believe that they'd lost the Limerick game. I don't know if you were thinking the same thing, but I remember particularly when the Limerick got the 2 goals in a minute, and all 3 of the goals, as far as I was concerned, were avoidable. All 3 of them. And but I'm not saying that it was Clare's fault, the third one. The third one probably should have been a free out. The second one, again, I think Clare should have dealt with it better, and I do think Quilligan probably should have saved it. And then the first goal from Diarmaid Byrnes is just a free goal where it just drops into the net. So I think Clare would be walking away from that game thinking, how on earth did we lose that?
Yeah, no, and I think so. And I think the concerning part of it, and it's a pattern with Clare, even last season, they had these moments as well, is that they do struggle to close out games. And they've done this throughout the league. The alarm bells maybe should have been ringing in the league final a little bit with Kilkenny coming back and nearly caught them as well, but they absolutely faded out of that game. And when they needed somebody to step up in the last 10 minutes to catch a few puckouts as well, they didn't have it. They didn't have it at all. And this is the concern for them a little bit, is that in around that 60-minute mark, they need somebody other than Shane O'Donnell to step up and say, I'm winning the hard ball here as well. And you have to applaud them for how they approach the games against Limerick, where they go mano a mano and they say that that we're going 15-15 on you. Our full back line are going to have to be good enough to mark your forwards as well. And look, essentially, I think
it makes for box office. You can't argue with that.
Yeah, no, it was great in that sense. But I think by about 60 minutes, they weren't winning a single ball out the field. That the full back line's under so much pressure, and that's when you see them start to crack. Then all of a sudden, Garrett Hegarty's in 20 yards of space on the right sideline. All of a sudden, I just think that they need in the Limerick game as well. Look, they were very, very close to. You could probably argue that if the Diarmaid Byrnes free doesn't go in the top corner, with the way it is there as well, that they probably win that game and they close it out. So, look,
but the funniest thing is, man, is that I don't think Clare played well. A lot of people are saying oh, Clare had a great game. No, they didn't. They scored 118. That's not what Clare are capable of. Limerick were just even worse than them. I said, Limerick in that game, in the first half especially, they turned up, and it was like watching a team that was fresh off the beach, fresh off a holiday. They looked leggy. They look the amount of misses. Diarmaid Byrnes was hitting frees wide. I've never seen Diarmaid Byrnes miss. And yet, every free he was taking, he wasn't close to the target. And then before that one went into the net. And Like the crazy thing is that if he was playing well, ironically, he probably would have put that free over the bar and not dropped it short to where it ended up in the net. So I think Clare would have been looking there thinking, we've missed a golden opportunity to beat Limerick. Like they're never going to be at that level again. Like you think Kylie is going to absolutely be blasting them out of it in training now.
Yeah, no,
You
absolutely.
do
And
not let your level drop to that level again. So I think Clare will be really vexed. And my question then back to you is, Clare are fresh off the defeat to Limerick. Cork are fresh off the defeat to Waterford. Which camp would you rather be in heading into this kind of what feels like a do or die clash?
I think Clare. I definitely think Clare. I think the Cork game maybe was there a little bit of arrogance about it, that people were thinking, oh, Waterford are a shit show under Davy and stuff like this, and I think they started believing it. I think they started believing. There was talking like in the media of Cork just showing up and winning by 10 points in there as well, and they probably
You
bought
can
into
see
it.
how much it meant to Davy as well. So you
Yeah,
knew he
yeah.
had them riled up.
And that's the thing. The Waterford players knew exactly what they were going to bring and stuff as well. I think Cork maybe kind of undervalued them a little bit and stuff. So I think you'd rather be in the Clare dressing room coming in because at the end of the day, with 30 minutes to go, you were 9 points up on the All Ireland champions. So they can say, despite not playing well, they were in that position, and barring 3 goals. What Lohan's going to be saying is that there are 3 preventable goals that they're never going to concede again. That he'll be working on that to make sure they never concede that again. And he'll be saying, take them out, and we probably would have won that game. So they can go into it with a bit more positivity about it as well. They've beaten Cork last year, albeit by the most narrowest of margins. But like, I do think Cork have this arrogance about them, and if they can get a bit of youth into the side and a bit of energy, if Shane Kingston's back to come off the bench about 20 minutes to go, get Decky Dalton back in as well. Like I think that yeah, I think the way these games go is that I don't see more than a point in it.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be more than a point in it. Both sides have absolutely electric forwards. You'd wonder on Tony Kelly's fitness as well. Will we see him maybe play slightly more minutes in this game? You never know, because like when they brought him on, it really felt like against Limerick, like here we go, Tony's in. This is, the parade. Like they're beating Limerick, and here comes Tony to help see them over the finish line. And then it all went up in the air when Tony came on. Not that it was his fault, obviously, but like you wonder, is he going to play more minutes now? You wonder about the fitness of other Clare players. Like where is everybody else's general fitness at? Did anybody pick up any knocks in that game? Because they are the unknowns. Cork the same. Like, is anybody carrying a knock that maybe we don't know about coming into this game, that then it could go in the first 10 minutes? And that's why these games are always then a point either way, 2 points either way, and it's so hard to tell who's actually going to come out on top. There's never more than a score between them, but there probably will be a score between them on this occasion. And who do you think is going to win?
Do you know what? I feel like I've talked myself against all logic, I suppose, really, with it. I'm gonna go with Cork by a point. I think that I think if Cork can keep it close up to about 50, 55 minutes, if they're only about 3 or 4 points down, I think Cork win this game. I think that we're going to see a different version of Cork. I think Owen Downey will come in. I think we'll see more focus on youth. I think Fitzgibbon will push up a little bit further as well, and I think we'll see. I think they'll try and play a team that echoes more what played against Limerick in the championship last year, and I just think that I'm just concerned about Clare's fade out in games recently, and I just think that last year Cork nearly caught them in the last 5 minutes, nearly got them as well, and like last year Clare just about kept them out, and like these games are a flip of a coin. I'm gonna go probably against all logic. I didn't think before coming on the video I was going to say this, but I'm going to go with Cork to win by a point.
Yeah, I mean, you are very convinced when you're talking about like Clare have faded out in the last couple of games that they've had. I just think Clare probably have slightly more to. I feel like, but this is what I mean. Both sides have so much to lose in this game, because if Cork go out for the second year in a row under Pat Ryan, last year there was a lot of goodwill that went. What?
It'll be a change in management if Cork
Yeah.
lose this. It's Ben O'Connor next year.
Yeah, which is mental, because when you're putting it down like to that, I probably would go with Clare. I think Clare probably will shade it. I can't. It's a part of my brain that, like, I can't really fathom that they would go out of the championship this early. But then on top of that, like, we've seen collapses before after winning the league. The only team that hasn't really done it recently is Limerick. Like, Waterford were on top of the world when they won the league, and then they came into Munster and they were just flat. And you wonder with Clare, like, they did run out of gas against Limerick, and you wonder how much is in the tank going into this game. And Cork didn't perform against Waterford, so maybe they have more to bring to this game. It's really, really hard to actually predict.
Yeah.
And Cork were only getting stronger. You know, in the Waterford game, they were only coming into it more and more as the game went on. So, I mean, the fact it's never more than a point in it. I'm going to go with Clare, but I'm not very confident in that prediction, to be honest. So I'll just say Clare narrowly. Then this game is another banger, because they drew last year, Limerick against Tipperary at the Gaelic grounds. I said, this game last year was the type of game that had me convinced that Limerick were going to survive in Munster. Because I remember in Semple Stadium, I remember watching thinking, if there was ever a time for Limerick to panic, this was now, because Tipperary were in front. Everything that Limerick was trying was going wrong. But I remember thinking, they won't give up. They kept winning puckouts, put the ball wide, but then they'd win the next puckout, and then it would hit the post and go over. And they were just, by hook or by crook, they got a result against Tipperary. But on top of that, Tipperary were also fantastic that day, and they pushed Limerick all the way. This time, it's not in Semple Stadium; it's in the Gaelic grounds. What are you expecting this time?
I'd be a little bit more concerned for Tip this year. I think Tip were in a better place last year than where they are right now. Like, obviously, it was not a very satisfying league campaign, I don't think, for Liam Cahill. I think particularly it started well, and they showed promise in the first couple of games as well, and looked good. They got a good win against Galway, and then it all just kind of went downhill a little bit from there. And I think the concern I'd have for Tipperary is, like, there's just so many unknowns about them. I think, like, the goalkeeper's not nailed down. It probably will be Barry Hogan, which is a change from Shelley last year, which is surprising to me. But
Mm-hmm.
that's a big issue there as well. Like, we don't know who's playing 3 and 6 is the other huge issue as well. It's like, is Ronan Mara playing 3? Who's playing 6? Like, if you look at who played 6 in the league, it was either Robert Byrne or Brian McGrath. And like, Robert Byrne played 4 of those games, and then in the league semi-final against Clare, like, he didn't look like somebody that was ready to play centre half back in the championship. So, like, does he go there, or does Ronan Mara, after not playing any game time, go there? Does Brian O'Mara go there, even though he was on the wing for the whole league? We don't really know. And there's that. There's Cahill Barrett. Like, we don't know if he's back fit yet as well. Does he come into the corner? Like, and they haven't unearthed a new forward. Like, they haven't really produced that kind of standout name that you're like is going to come in. There's talk maybe Sean Hayes might come in, or that, I know, Billy
Shawnee
Bruno.
Ryan did look impressive at stages.
Yeah, that's the thing. He blew very hot and cold at times too as well, and that,
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, I think they're just lacking that maybe prolific scorer. They've Jason Ford and Jake Morris, and then outside of that, like, Garrett O'Connor's maybe going to chip in with 2 points, but outside of that, like, I just don't see where the scores are going to come from. I think, like, they do have the benefit of the week off. They got to look at everybody else play. They're coming in fresh to play Limerick after Limerick played a war last week against Clare. I think they're going to tear into Limerick. I wouldn't be surprised in the first half if Tipper maybe about 4 or 5 points up at half time. But, like, I don't think they've enough. I just don't think they've enough. I think the Limerick surge in the second half, and we're gonna, like, we'll be talking about Limerick more in a second. I think the Limerick bench last week, like, that level we talked about, kind of Cork having the older players, that Limerick youth and enthusiasm coming on as well, and energy. Like, I think it's gonna be too much for a Tyrone Tip. And yeah, I think it's gonna be a good game. I think Tip will really, really bring it, and Cal will have them absolutely fired up. But, like, yeah, it's very hard to say it won't be a similar pattern to what we see every single time these two play.
Yeah, I kind of can see it going that route again. I can see Tipperary coming out, giving it absolute hell, and Limerick just finding a way to win. Like if you can tell me that they played that bad last weekend and still won. Genuinely, there were times where I was like, there's nothing that could go better for Clare up until the Dermot Burns goal. I was like, literally all of them are having stinkers. Every single one of their best players are not playing well. And it's the most gilt-edged opportunity to beat Limerick that you're ever going to have. And Limerick still found a way to win. And look, that, as I said, that was Clare who weren't playing particularly well. Maybe Tipperary will come in and smash it. You never know. Maybe they might have a performance like they had in 2019. But what has always happened is Tip have come out and given it a hell of a first half, and Limerick have reined them in the second half. A draw was the result last year. I'm going to go for Limerick to win it this year. Genuinely, I back Limerick to win any game that they're in, especially when you think about how off colour they were last week and they still won. I think they'd be the first to say themselves that they weren't at their best, yet they still beat what a lot of people would consider as being the team that's the most likely to beat them. Like the best stylistic matchup for them. The only team that has beaten them since 2019. So, like, if they were that off colour against them and still won, I can't see Tipperary all of a sudden being able to come up with the goods to beat them. I think they're going to give it a hell of a crack, but I probably will say that Limerick will come out on top. We'll switch then from Munster to Leinster. This game is the big one in Leinster, obviously. Round 2, Galway versus Kilkenny at Pearse Stadium. It's what has been the big two in Leinster for the last few years. Locking horns in Pearse Stadium once again. This game is usually a very tight affair, and it's never really more than one score either way. Usually a draw, funnily enough, as well. What are we thinking this time?
Yeah, I think it'll be a scrappy one. I think down in Pearse Stadium as well, with the way those games go, like the breeze down there is always insane. And like, with the way it is early days as well, that's the thing, is like these games in the round robin are always really interesting. And I don't think you can ever really read too much into them, because they know that they're probably going to be playing each other in a Leinster final a little bit down the line. Obviously, Wexford and Dublin will object to that, but like the likely odds is that these two are going to face off in a little while in the bigger game anyway. But I think this one could be a little bit of shadow boxing in the sense that I think Kilkenny, with the way round 1 went, that you saw Owen Murphy, Adrian Mullen, and Owen Cody off with injuries. I think Owen Murphy might be all right for it, but like there's a decent chance that Adrian Mullen and Owen Cody are not going to be playing in this. And like you take the two of them out, like it's a huge, huge loss in the sense. I think this game, the prediction for this game comes down to whether they play or not. From what I heard, Adrian Mullen won't be playing, and Owen Cody might or might not be playing as well. Like I think if you're going with them two, like I think Galway, after you saw the team that they put out in round 1 against Carlow, essentially rested a good few of their first choice players as well. They'll be there fit and primed for this as well. I think if that's the way it goes, I think Galway come and win it by maybe 2 or 3 points, and yeah, they get a big win for themselves. But I don't think Galway are a better team than Kilkenny. I really like. I think Galway might win this on the day. They're at home and they have a fully fit squad. Nobody out with injuries as well. Whereas Kilkenny carrying a few wounded coming in as well, going up there on a away trip. I think I'm going to go with Galway to win this, but like I'm still sticking with my prediction that I think Kilkenny, when it comes down to a Leinster final, when all the players are fit, I think they're about 3 or 4 points better than Galway this year.
Interesting. I do agree with you. I think Galway will win this. For the Leinster final itself, I do think Galway are definitely capable of winning it, especially when you see just how close they were to winning it last year. I mean, it was the Killian Buckley goal at the death that won it for Kilkenny. In this game, I do think Shefflin will probably take it a slight bit more serious, in the fact that they did rest a lot of players last weekend for the Carlow game. You would imagine, he'll blood them in this time. This is a very good opportunity to get some championship experience into them, to get some championship minutes into them and get them ready for, the tests like Dublin and Wexford, because Dublin and Wexford will eye up the Galway game as a scalp that they can possibly take. Same thing with Kilkenny. especially for Wexford. Wexford have seemed to do well against Kilkenny over the last few seasons. So I think Galway will go into this game taking it very seriously. I think they'll play a very strong team. Kilkenny, on the other hand, you'd imagine if they're missing Adrian Mullen and Owen Cody, that's two absolute, sharpshooters that are, their most trusted. But they still have, some absolutely outstanding hurlers, and it'd be interesting to see which one they lean on the most. Will it be TJ? Will it be Mossy Keown? Will it be Owen Wall, who was really good last week as well? Obviously got voted into the team of the week. He's shown serious promise. Billy Drennan is another one I like to keep an eye on, see how his form is getting on. But in this game, I will probably go with Galway to take it narrowly. I'd say a point or two. With it being in Pearse Stadium, home comforts might just help Galway out the smallest bit. And I'll go with Galway to shade this one. Moving on then to the Leinster round 2 next game. Carlow against Dublin in Netwatch Cullen Park. This should be a game that Dublin win. Like, if we're being honest, it should be a game that Dublin win. But it's in Netwatch Cullen Park. Carlow will eye this one up as a potential banana skin that they can present to Dublin. And Dublin have slipped up against, teams that have come out of the John McDonagh Cup before, like Laois in 2019, and then subsequently gave us really, really hard matches. But I can see nothing other than a Dublin win here.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. And that I think Carlow are really going to bring it in that the sense as well. At one stage last week against Galway, Carlow had it back to 4 points, like nearly halfway through the second half, and that I'd expect similar thing as well. I'd say up to about 50 minutes, there's not going to be a whole lot in this game. Like, I think it could be one score in it by 50 minutes, and then, like, I'd imagine that Dublin should probably start to pull away then as well a little bit. I don't think it'll be more than 6 to 8 points though. I think that's the margin on which they'll probably win it in. I think they're probably blessed, Dublin, a little bit that to have got out of Wexford there last week with a draw. But they were really, like, look, we've all seen the goals at the end, that it really was back to route one, kind of back to basics goals. And but they have a great opportunity here now as well, in the sense that they know now as well is that they're going to be going toe to toe with Wexford, and that there is going to be a little bit, and we'll be talking about this in a second, is that both teams are going to be both teams between Dublin and Wexford are going to be thinking, we need to put up big score lines here as well, because it could very, very well come down to points difference between the two of them as well. If it goes as expected, and Dublin beat both Antrim and Carlow, and Wexford do the same, then all of a sudden, look, they're the same. It comes down to point difference, and these games are really, really important, that they need to come out on the right side, because, look, you never know the way it could go. Dublin and Wexford could both lose to Kilkenny and Galway. We never know as well, and it could come down to it, that these games could end up being absolutely huge and who gets out as the third place team. But I think, yeah, Dublin they showed a bit of promise as well. They're still very reliant on their scores from Cian Sullivan, Danny Sutcliffe, Donald Burke, but I think they'll have enough anyway to get over the line by 6 to 8 points.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think Carlow will come and give it absolutely everything they got. I think 40 minutes, the game will be right there in the melting pot, but I think Dublin will kick on in the final quarter and get the victory. Then in the other game, Antrim take on Wexford in Corrigan Park. Now, this one I'm really interested in, because when Keith Rossiter took the job, I've given him great praise. I've really liked how he's gone about his business. On top of that, Match is giving him praise. Everybody's giving him praise. And I mean, he does deserve it. He's doing well. But on paper, there's not much different from Wexford now as to last season. And they had an okay league. They did bring in some new players, everything like that. Seamus Casey in particular caught my eye. Like, I know he's been on the panel for a few years, but he did look like he stepped up in the league. Keane Byrne is a completely new face that looked really good. But then, they drew with Dublin, which is something that they've consistently done. They've only beaten Dublin once in the round robin ever since it was brought in. So again, that's been exactly the same as it was under Davy Fitz and under Dara Egan. So you're saying, okay, show us something different. And why I'm looking at this game is Wexford should, with the amount of players that Antrim are missing, Wexford should go up there and do what Galway or Kilkenny would do, which is win comfortably. Win by at least 10 points, 12 points. But what I'm saying is Wexford also have a tendency to bottle it in this type of game. They completely shot themselves in the foot losing to Westmeath last year. and then they drew at them the year before that. So it's like they doubled down on a mistake. And what I'm saying is, going into this game, is that with Rossiter, I'm really looking at this game thinking, okay, this type of game will be the one to show me that you've like tricked them out of their old bad habits of dropping the ball, taking their eye off it, letting the game down.
Yeah, I think so. And like, I think the disappointing part of round one for Wexford was in a league where, yeah, they got a pasting by Cork in the last round, but up to before then, it was a league where the new fellas stepped up. Like, you already talked about Seamus Casey, but there was like Richie Lawler, who looked really good throughout. Corey Byrne Dunbar, who wasn't involved the last day. Like, there was a lot of these players, and Keane Byrne, you already mentioned as well. But when it came back down to it, week one of championship as well, like Lee Chin had to put in an all heroic performance in there as well. Rory O'Connor hit 4 points from play, and outside of that, like, I think Cathal Dunbar hit one, Conor MacDonald off the bench hit one, and Keane Byrne hit one off the bench, and that was it. That was their scores, and all of a sudden it was back to just Chin and O'Connor doing it all again for Wexford, and that was probably the real disappointing aspect, I'd say, of it, where just all these lads that showed promise, like, they didn't fully deliver on the first round of championship as well. So yeah, no, like, not a great start for Wexford, but at the same time, they can say, look, we had that game won, and we polish up our full back line dealing with long ball, and we probably win that game. So they have that as well. Going up to Antrim, it's a weird one because, look, Antrim have had this before where they've gone and played away days where they've been absolutely destroyed. Like, and this has happened this year as well. Like, you think back to the first game of the league where they played Limerick, where it was an unbelievable beating they got, and like, it's a terrible start to their championship going down to Kilkenny, and especially the fact that Kilkenny were lost the three lads in the first half and then took TJ off after 40 minutes too, to have lost by 32 points in that game with all them factors is really, really worrying. I think Corrigan Park makes it slightly different, but yeah, I think Wexford will probably they'll face a good bit of resistance, particularly in the first 30 first 35 up to about 50 minutes. I think they'll face resistance, and then they'll have too much class and win by 8 to 10 points.
Yeah, no, I am going for Wexford, no question about it. I do think that Rossiter has made a difference, and I think this might be the type of game that it shows. I think Wexford might strut their stuff a bit. It's not just the Lee McCarthy that has taken place over the weekend. I'm going to run through the other fixtures from the Joe McDonagh Cup, Christy Ring Cup, Nicky Rackard and Laurie Marr now. So in the Joe McDonagh Cup's round 2, Kerry take on Down in Austin Stack Park. Of course, Kerry fresh off their surprise victory against Westmeath. I mean, that really, really caught a lot of people off guard. Westmeath tried to bounce back. They go away to O'Connor Park to face Offaly, who were also beaten by Laois. That's a dangerous game for both of those teams. Meath take on Laois in Trim. Laois, I think, will be flying so high after beating Offaly in that game. I do tip them to win the next one against Meath. The Christy Ring round 3 then. Sligo take on Tyrone in Markovich Park. London take on Wicklow in Ruislip. And Kildare take on Derry and Hawkfield. Kildare no doubt buzzing as well after the pasting that they gave to Wicklow in round number 2. Then the Nicky Rackard Cup, Armagh take on Roscommon at the Athletic Grounds. Donegal take on Monaghan in Letterkenny. And Louth take on Mayo in Dowdall's Hill. And then the Laurie Marr Cup round 3, Warwickshire take on Fermanagh in Birmingham. Lancashire take on Cavan in Glenavi. And Longford take on Leitrim in Pearse Park at 1 p.m. So all that hurling action is all on across the weekend. We are now going to switch our attention to the big ball. We're going to switch our attention to Gaelic football, and there is no game that is going to be more talked about going into this weekend's action than Donegal against Tyrone in Celtic Park. Interesting that they picked a Derry venue to host this Ulster semi-final between Donegal and Tyrone. You think maybe the GA might have wanted a certain Mr. Mickey Hart to face off against Tyrone and Celtic Park in an Ulster semi-final. But it is Donegal who have upset the party. They beat Mickey Hart's Derry, of course, in that Ulster quarter-final. First things first, I actually haven't got your opinions on that game. What did you make of Donegal's performance against Derry? They certainly felt, watching it anyway, certainly felt like McGuinness had just like copped what a lot of people probably should have copped a long time ago, is that Lynch can be lobbed.
Yeah, and I think I think the weapon that Donegal had was Patton with the kickouts as well. Is that like it was kind of staggering? I thought a little bit from Derry that they didn't copy, even just positioning where to go and stand for the kickouts as well. It was that Patton was able to kick it longer than that, and then all of a sudden kick it to the other side, and then all of a sudden in on goal with no goalkeeper there. So it wasn't like, it's funny in the sense that it's not a revolutionary tactic,
Mm-hmm.
and and like I think most teams would think of, oh, if the goalie's coming out there, kick it to the other side and try and win it and break up the field quickly. But Donegal just executed really, really well. And it's like they had the weapon from Patton as well to kick to kick so far and to be clear on where Lynch was standing as well with the kick out. So yeah, no, I think like that's obviously it's very, very hard to talk about the game without talking about the elephant in the room, which was how the goals did come from that. And like it's like it's obviously kind of hard to say whether it was a tactical malfunction by Derry or a tactical masterclass by Donegal, and how good Donegal were. They were impressive on the day. I think they defended well. They defended their goal well. Derry didn't really get in. McGuigan had one of his quieter days as well. They shut him down too. So yeah, no, look, I think it has to be positive signs from a Donegal perspective as well. I thought they were impressive. They were obviously helped by the tactic, but then again, nobody else is exploiting it to that level before. So you have to just hold your hands up and say that, like, fair play to them that they worked it out. And look, if they could exploit them in that way as well, I'm sure they've got something up their sleeves for Tyrone coming at the weekend as well. And look, they beat the league finalists as well. They were impressive in doing so. They'll be much happier coming into this game rather than Tyrone, who faced an absolute kind of battle anyway the previous week, and it ended up being a very, very grueling game against a good Cavan side, but a game maybe that they probably should have won in normal time.
Mm-hmm. No, Tyrone definitely, probably, like, they'd be the first to say that they should have closed that game out in normal time. But 10 minutes of madness kind of undid 60 minutes of Tyrone control. Cavan got back into the game. Certain decisions didn't go in Tyrone's favour as well, which obviously didn't help. And then obviously Cavan worked their way back into the game and forced extra time. But Tyrone still found a way to get the win. And like, when you're talking about the amount of new players that they've had to breed in this year, on paper, to stay in Division 1 and to reach an Ulster semi-final, it's not bad going. And like they're chugging along okay, especially when you consider how many lads have had to make their debuts this year and how much the side has changed over the last 3 years. So I think they're doing well, and they're in this semi-final against Donegal. And a lot of people were saying that the Donegal game against Derry in the Ulster quarterfinal reminded them a lot of the Donegal Dublin game in 2014, where Donegal stopped what seemed like an unstoppable force. Well, for anybody watching, what happened after Donegal beat Dublin? They lost the next game that they played. I know that it was an All-Ireland final. I know that it was against Kerry, but it seemed like they were so focused on Dublin, and the game plan was so mapped out on how to beat Dublin. They were so locked in on how to beat Dublin that it almost was like that All-Ireland final, Gainey gets to go real quick, and it was almost like Kerry snuck up on them. In this game, Tyrone are coming like with a different threat. They are coming with a different threat. You have really pacey forwards like Dara Canavan and Rory Canavan and Kieran Daly and everything that are just quick, lightning quick. And also, Tyrone aren't going to make that mistake with Oran Lynch. Donegal aren't going to get as easy goals that they got against Derry in this game against Tyrone. I still think Donegal will go for goal. I think Donegal McGuinness will very much try to stamp his authority down in this game and try and get a couple of early goals as like a statement that, like, we're the boss here. Because if you look at it, like, there's one manager he loved to beat, Mickey Hart, but there's one team he liked to beat, and that's Tyrone. So I think for Jim McGuinness, there's no more 2 pairs of games that he would have wanted to be more motivated for going into this. I think it's a dangerous one for Donegal, because I think Tyrone are flying right under the radar, and that's where historically they've liked to be. They've won a lot of their All-Irelands when they've been underdogs. And Donegal as well are a side that played in Division 2 Tyrone played in Division 1 and stayed there. I don't think it's as cut and dry as people are making it out to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think so. And like you said, bar the minutes of madness at the end as well, Tyrone probably win that game quite comfortably. And like that's the thing, Cavan are a serious side. Like that's the thing. It's like it's not even like we're talking about a side they should have been dispatching. Cavan are a good side here as well. And like that's the thing. Donegal, if Donegal were playing Cavan, that would have been a very close game as well there too. So like I don't think this whole thing it's as simple as saying, oh, Donegal beat Derry. Donegal have to be the clear favourites as well. Tyrone with the pedigree up there as well. They've done more in recent years. They've got more history in their side, albeit that it is the new side that they're fielding at the moment. But yeah, I do think when push comes to shove, I think I will probably go with the boring choice and say I think Donegal will edge it by a point or two. I'll go 2 points by Donegal, and I think that they're for this time of year they're very well set for this time of year. I think that I'm not saying that they've peaked now, but I think they're very close to the highest of their potential right now, and they're playing some unbelievable stuff. So I think I'd be going Donegal for right now.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a difficult one to call. And I would never, I stand by what I said. It's nowhere near as cut and dry as people say. Donegal were amazing against Derry. Like, they got everything right to get the tactics spot on, the performances, the individual performances of the likes of Ryan McHugh, like Darrell Boyle, was absolutely phenomenal. This game, as I said, is going to bring different threats. It's going to bring a completely new challenge to Donegal. And McGuinness is one of the best in the business. And I just think I probably will shade it to Donegal narrowly, very, very narrowly. 1 point, 2 points. I think Tyrone, as I said, have done great when you consider how hard they've been hit. And then Matty Donnelly coming back as well is absolutely such a massive boost to them that he's back in. So you really cannot write Tyrone off. But yeah, I think it's the type of situation that if I'm putting a cheeky bet on it, like an underdog of the week bet, Tyrone to beat Donegal. But life on it, I'll edge it towards Donegal and just say Donegal by a point. Yeah, so that would lead them into an Ulster final. And then on the other side, we have a repeat of last year's Ulster semi-final, down against Armagh in Clonus. So it's a downside again that are literally staring right into the face of Tailteann Cup football if they do not win this game. If they lose this game, they're into the Tailteann Cup. How important it is for Down to win this game. Armagh, on the other hand, McGeaney is desperate to win silverware. Desperate to win silverware. It's a massive game for both of them.
Yeah, no, I think so. And I do think it's definitely the soft side of the draw. I think I think there is a bit of a feeling that the other semi-final is a bit of an Ulster final. I know that we've seen in recent years that Armagh have put it up to teams, but I'm just not fully convinced by Armagh at the moment right now. And I think their level's just not quite where it's been in the last couple of seasons as well. Like Down obviously had the disappointment in the National League coming into it as well too. So I think coming in, Armagh, they did the thing is in round one they did show a lot of promise in the first half in particular with the goals. Like they did 3 goals at halftime coming in as well. And I know Reno Neal went off injured quite early in that game. Not sure what his status will be coming into here now as well. But it's very hard to know because based off the league this year wasn't mad keen on what way Armagh were going, and then they did look a bit more expansive anyway against Fermanagh and kind of blew them off the park a little bit. So in this game, I think you have to be saying that you would be favouring Armagh in this game by I'd be going about 5 to 6 points. I'd be saying that Armagh to win by. Long term, I do think they'll. When it comes down to it, I would be backing whoever wins the other semi-final to be beating them in the final right now. But yeah, no, I think it'll be very very interesting setting up kind of this weekend as well. Down, like you said, they have on their side the intent, the carrot of playing championship football this year. They know one win gets them senior championship, if not Tailteann. But I think they are going to be Tailteann bound, and I think they'll probably resign themselves with the fact that they'll have a great chance of winning the Tailteann if they do go that way.
Yeah, I think that's probably something I'd agree with. I think with all you've said, I think if Armagh get into the final, I don't back them against whoever comes out of the other side. I think Tyrone would beat them, and I think Donegal will probably beat them too. There's something a bit off colour about them. Like when you see how they lost the league final to Donegal, it was like it just felt like they let it slip through their fingers. Rian O'Neill, how fit is he? Like it feels like the games are coming thick and fast now for Armagh. It honestly felt after the league final like Armagh needed a break. Honestly, it felt like Armagh needed 2-3 weeks to just stop playing football and just recover for a little bit. But yet we're already here at Ulster semi-final stage, and with the condensed season, you don't get no breaks anymore. So, like for Armagh coming into this game, it feels like there's a potential upset on the cards because they seem like they're not at 100%, but I still think that they'll get passed down and they'll get into the Ulster final. But depending on how well Donegal or Tyrone play as well, if Donegal and Tyrone play an absolute howler, which I don't think that they will, I would revise my verdict on the Ulster final. But I probably would say that I would make whoever, because as you said, it is the easier side of the draw. And I think if Tyrone have got there, they've got there by beating Cavan and by beating Donegal. If Donegal have got there, they've got there by beating Derry and Tyrone. It's definitely a harder side of the draw to have come through. And I would shade it to one of them to take the Ulster final when it does come around. But Armagh for me to win that semi-final. Now, the Leinster semi-finals, they're taking place on the same day in Croke Park on Sunday. This one is on first, Ian, and funnily enough, it's the one that is the more interesting out of the two. Louth against Kildare in Croke Park. And this one is really interesting, actually, because you've got Louth on one hand. I think this is a brilliant opportunity for Louth to show how much they've increased their levels and how they are just better than Kildare now. Because if they beat them in the league and then double down on it by beating them in championship, well, then they've really proved it. Kildare, on the other hand, they have shown some fight. And I think a lot of people, when they take aim at Kildare, a lot of people will say, be like, oh, no fight, no heart. They showed heart against Wicklow. They dug it out when it was in the fire. Are their performances at the level that they could be? Definitely not. Do they have the best 15 players that they could have on that pitch? I don't think so. And I'm not saying that's an excuse for it. I still think that at their best, those lads should be beating Wicklow by more than they are. But they still managed to make it through. And they're standing here now against Louth in Croke Park. They are one good performance away from a Leinster final and putting themselves into the Sam Maguire Cup. So can they do it?
Do you know what? Yeah, look, I think like, I don't know, are we programmed to think that Kildare playing Louth in Croke Park should just be a Kildare win the whole time? But like, it's seriously been challenged with that now as well, and that this kind of natural gut to always say Kildare are going to play Dublin and Leinster final every single time. That like, I think I'm not sure what the bookies odds have this at, but I'd imagine Kildare be side favourites. So I think if I was going with one game where the underdog to probably come through, I think this probably is the one. I think they have a great opportunity to build on what's already been a great week for Louth football as well, with the win over the Dubs in the 20s. That like, I think they have a huge opportunity. And like you talk about, like Kildare, obviously they did show a good bit of fight down men to get the, like, I think 2 players down as well to get a 1-point win there at the end. But like, how are they in that position in the first place against Wicklow? Like as well, that you look in previous years where they've been, the decline is just huge, and that this just hasn't happened in previous years. Even when they'd be getting regularly dispatched by Dublin in finals, that they would still be putting away the likes of those teams as well. And it just doesn't look right. It hasn't looked right since minute one of this season as well. And like with Louth, I'd say if you compare the two 15s, you're taking Kildare's 15 probably every day of the week. But like they've a tight camp. They know exactly what they're doing. Like Jared Brennan's having a relatively good first season in there as well with them too. And do you know what? I'll go with an upset there, and I think Louth will pinch it.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I personally am actually going to go and back Kildare. Something that I didn't think I'd do at the start of the video. I just think when you see how they fought back against Wicklow and how they just about weren't ready to completely throw the towel in. Just that little bit of spark just shows me that they're not finished. They're not wrote off. Forget about them. They're done. They still dug it out. Louth have been very impressive in how that they dispatched of Wexford, who were in better form than Wicklow. But Wicklow beat Westmeath. Like, Wicklow beat Westmeath and Kildare beat them. So, like, Wicklow were no pushovers and they came with a game plan. They came ready to beat Kildare. And Kildare still found a way to win. Denise said it would be an achievement in itself for Louth to reach 2 consecutive Leinster finals, but Kildare would be able to put it up more of a fight to Dublin, I think. I agree with that. I think when you're talking about the scope of who can go higher, who has a higher ceiling of ability to hit, I think the Kildare team does have a higher ceiling, and it would potentially be a more exciting Leinster final if Kildare got there, because I do think Dublin would beat Louth. I do think Dublin will win either way, but you want to see an entertaining game. I am going to go with Kildare by narrowly, a point or two, no more than that. But I do think they might just battle their way through to an Leinster final. But if they turn up anything like how they turned up against in some of their league games, they're gone. Forget about it. But I think with the carrot of Sam Maguire dangling in front of their face, and you can literally save yourselves and get Sam Maguire Cup football, I think they might just. So I'm going to go for them to take that, which then would put them into the Leinster final against Dublin if Offaly cannot stop them. Now, this game is obviously going to be on the Sunday as well. It's Dublin, who are, the All-Ireland champions, 13 in a row Leinster champions, against Offaly, who stayed in Division 3 by the skin of their teeth. And like a lot of people will say, try and be a little bit positive or try and be a little bit optimistic. But when you see how Dublin just slapped up Meath, and it was Dublin playing literally in second gear for the entire game, I can't see anything other than a comfortable Dublin victory. I just can't.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And I think that was Dublin without Fenton, a ring Rusty Cluxton in there as well. Fitzsimons isn't fully back
No
as well.
James
McCarthy as well. It was Dublin literally in cruise control, and we know Meath are a bit further ahead of Offaly as well. So it's a scary enough prospect, and it's just not really a fair fight. It's very hard to say kind of what value either team will probably get out of this game at the weekend, and it's unfortunate for Offaly as well, and look, they'll get their day out in Croke Park as well, and that's kind of what it is really a little bit. And that you would hope that they'll put up a good fight as well, and they'll get something that they can build off for the rest of their season. But realistically, if they keep it to 15 points, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I think Dublin by 10 for me. I don't think Dublin will go hammer and tongs, but I do think they'll just win it relatively comfortably. I think Offaly will have a relatively okay first 20 minutes where they'll pick up some nice points. But there seems to be a trend in Leinster games that after 20 minutes, it will be 5 points to 4 for Dublin, and the team that they're playing against will have worked their bollocks off to get those 4 points. They'll have worked so hard to get those points, and then Dublin will just go. And then within 5 minutes, the team has gone from being 2 points behind, 3 points behind, to 10 points behind. And then Dublin just manage it out from there. That tends to be how it goes. I see that this one will probably go the same. Offaly, I think, will start well. They'll get some nice points from the likes of Jack Bryant. Then Dublin will put the squeeze on and going relatively comfortable at halftime and then blow them away in the third quarter. I think that's probably what I think is going to happen. But yeah, that is the end of our weekend preview. So we previewed all the hurling action and we previewed the football action as well. Don't forget, guys, Sunday evening, 8 p.m. is once again the weekend review. We'll be reviewing all of this action as well. Thank you so much to anybody who put a comment in below. Do get involved in the comments down below when the video is over. Let us know your opinions on any of the games. And yeah, until the next one, guys, here on Clare, Torara.